Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of his ship. The Horizon was not a warship. It was a research vessel, built to explore the far edges of human space. For 3 months they had been studying something strange in the Kuiper Belt, something that made no sense. "Captain, you really need to see this," Dr. Lisa Chen called out from her station. Her voice shook with excitement and fear. Lisa was the best physicist on the ship. If she was worried, Jake knew they had found something big. Jake moved to her workstation and looked at the readings on her screen. The numbers made no sense to him, but Lisa's face told him everything. She had discovered something that would change everything. "What am I looking at, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Dark matter," she replied.
"But it's not behaving like it should."
"Look at these readings. When we hit it with electromagnetic pulses, it responds." "It actually responds, Captain. Dark matter isn't supposed to do that." Jake stared at the screen. He knew enough about physics to understand what Lisa was saying. Dark matter was supposed to be invisible. It was supposed to pass through normal matter without any interaction. But these readings showed something different. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I've run the test 20 times, Lisa said. The results are the same every time. This dark matter is different. It's like it's been changed somehow. Changed in a way that makes it react to our technology." On Earth, 10,000 light-years away, Admiral John Hayes sat in his office reading reports. Most of them were boring. Supply requests, personnel transfers, and routine patrol reports. But one report made him stop reading and call his assistant. "Get me Dr. Lisa Chen on the Horizon," he said. "Priority channel, now." The call took 30 minutes to connect through the quantum communication network. When Lisa's face appeared on his screen, Hayes could see the excitement in her eyes. "Doctor, I've read your preliminary report," Hayes said. "Tell me this isn't a mistake." "It's not a mistake, Admiral," Lisa replied. "We've found a region of space where dark matter behaves differently. We can manipulate it. We can control it." Hayes leaned back in his chair. For over 100 years, humanity had been trying to join the Galactic Council as full members. The alien species always said the same thing. Humans were too primitive. Their technology was too basic. They weren't ready for full membership, but this discovery could change everything. "Doctor, I'm sending you new orders," Hayes said. "This information is now classified at the highest level. You will continue your research, but you will tell no one else what you found." 3 weeks later, Paul Davis was working alone in Mining Station 7. It was a small asteroid mining operation in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Paul was an engineer, not a scientist. He fixed machines and kept the mining equipment running. He was trying to repair a broken containment field generator when something went wrong. Very wrong. The machine exploded, sending energy in all directions. Paul threw himself behind a metal barrier and waited for the explosion to end. When the noise stopped, Paul looked around the corner. The containment field was still running, but it looked different. Instead of the normal blue glow, it was completely black, and things were happening around it that made no sense. Small pieces of metal near the field were floating in the air, not just floating, but moving in strange patterns. As Paul watched, a wrench that had been on his workbench suddenly crushed itself into a ball. Paul ran to his communication station and called Earth. It took him an hour to convince anyone to listen to his story. When they finally did, they sent a science team to the station immediately. Dr. Amy Rodriguez arrived on Paul's station 2 days later. She was a specialist in exotic physics and quantum mechanics. She took one look at Paul's broken machine and knew they had stumbled onto something incredible. "Paul," she said, "you've accidentally created a dark matter manipulation field." "A what?" Paul asked. "You found a way to control dark matter," Amy explained. "This field you created, it can grab dark matter and make it do what we want." "Do you understand what this means?" Paul shook his head. "It means we can build weapons," Amy said quietly. "Weapons that use dark matter itself." The news traveled quickly through the highest levels of Earth's government. Within a week, President Helen Foster was meeting with her top military advisors. The meeting was held in the most secure room on Earth, deep underground beneath the Capitol. "How sure are we about this?" the president asked. "Very sure," Admiral Hayes replied. "We've confirmed the discovery independently. Dr. Rodriguez has already built a prototype device that can weaponize dark matter." "What kind of weapon are we talking about?" President Foster asked. General Alex Turner answered. "A weapon that can attack the basic structure of matter itself. Existing shields and armor would be useless against it. Any ship hit by a dark matter weapon would simply collapse. The president was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. How long would it take to build ships with this technology? 2 years, Hayes said. Maybe 3 if we want to do it right. And the aliens don't know we have this? No, Madam President. As far as the Galactic Council knows, we're still the same primitive humans they've always dismissed. President Foster smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then we build the ships, she said, in secret. And when we're ready, we show the galaxy that humans are not as primitive as they think. Back on the horizon, Jake Morrison watched as his crew packed up their equipment. They had been ordered back to Earth immediately. The Discovery site was being taken over by the military. Captain, Lisa said, do you think we did the right thing? Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations continued to treat humanity as second-class citizens. They controlled the best trade routes, the richest planets, and the most advanced technology. They kept humans in their place through superior military power, but that was about to change. I think we gave humanity a chance to stand up for itself, Jake said. What we do with that chance will determine what kind of people we really are. The horizon turned toward Earth and began its journey home. Behind them, the dark matter field continued to pulse with strange energy. The first step toward humanity's galactic dominance had been taken. 2 years after the discovery, Europa was no longer just a moon of Jupiter. It had become humanity's greatest secret. Under the ice, massive shipyards worked day and night to build something the galaxy had never seen before. Dark matter warships. Admiral Kate Williams stood on the observation deck of the hidden base and watched as the first ship rolled out of the construction bay. The USS Liberty was beautiful in a deadly way. Its black hull seemed to absorb light itself. Strange energy patterns moved across its surface like living things. She's ready for her first test run, Commander Rick Carter said as he joined the Admiral on the deck. Rick would be the Liberty's captain. He had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human history. Are you nervous, Commander? Kate asked. Terrified, Rick admitted. We're about to take a ship into battle that uses technology we barely understand. If something goes wrong, we could accidentally destroy ourselves. Kate nodded. She felt the same way. The dark matter drive system was revolutionary, but it was also incredibly dangerous. The ships could phase partially out of normal space, making them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. But one mistake could phase them out permanently. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had spent 2 years perfecting the technology. Her team had solved problem after problem, turning Paul Davis's mining accident into working weapons of war. The dark matter cannons could tear through any known shield by attacking matter at its most basic level. The dark matter torpedoes were even worse. They could create small black holes that crushed enemy ships. Dr. Rodriguez, Kate called as the scientist approached. Are you confident in the weapon systems? As confident as I can be, Amy replied. We've run thousands of simulations. The theory is sound. But this will be the first real test. The first test came sooner than expected. A group of pirates had been attacking human cargo ships near the edge of the solar system. They used stolen alien technology and thought they were untouchable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Captain Steve Murphy commanded the USS Defiance, the second ship in the new fleet. His orders were simple. Find the pirates and stop them. He was not told how to stop them. That was left to his judgment. Steve found the pirate fleet hiding behind a large asteroid. There were 12 ships, all armed with military-grade weapons. Under normal circumstances, Steve's single ship would have had no chance against them. But the Defiance was not a normal ship. Take us to Phase 1, Steve ordered. The ship's dark matter drive engaged. Reality seemed to bend around the Defiance as it slipped partially out of normal space. On the pirate ship's sensors, the human vessel simply vanished. Target the largest ship, Steve said. Fire dark matter torpedo. The weapon launched in complete silence. To the pirates, death came from nowhere. Their flagship simply began to collapse in on itself. The hull cracked and twisted as gravitational forces tore it apart from the inside. The ship imploded in seconds. The remaining pirates panicked. They fired their weapons in all directions, trying to hit an enemy they couldn't see. Their shots passed harmlessly through empty space, while the Defiance moved among them like a ghost. One by one, the pirate ships died. Dark matter cannons turned their hulls to dust. Gravitational torpedoes crushed them like empty cans. In 43 seconds, 12 pirate ships were destroyed. The Defiance had not taken a single hit. Steve stared at the wreckage floating in space. The power of his ship frightened him. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against this technology. Nothing. News of the battle reached Earth within hours. Admiral Hayes reviewed the combat reports with mixed feelings. The weapons had worked perfectly. Too perfectly. The complete destruction of the pirate fleet sent a message that humanity was no longer weak, but it also sent a message that humanity was now very dangerous. Captain Danny Lee commanded the third ship in the fleet, the USS Retribution. His mission was different from the others. Instead of fighting criminals, he was ordered to make contact with alien forces. Specifically, with the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians had controlled the outer rim of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their massive ships were legendary for their power and their cruelty. They had never acknowledged human sovereignty over any part of space. To them, humans were insects to be stepped on when convenient. Danny found a Zephyrian patrol near the Kepler system. 5 ships, each one larger than any human vessel ever built. Their hulls were covered with weapons that could destroy planets. The Zephyrian commander, Admiral Zexthon, was known throughout the galaxy for his hatred of younger species. "Human ship," came the transmission. "You are in Zephyrian space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Danny smiled. He had been hoping for exactly this response. "USS Retribution to Zephyrian fleet," he replied. "You are ordered to leave this system immediately. This space now belongs to humanity." The response was predictable. The Zephyrians opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could melt mountains struck the space where the Retribution had been. But the human ship was no longer there. Phase technology allowed the Retribution to exist between dimensions. The Zephyrian weapons passed harmlessly through the space where the ship appeared to be. Meanwhile, Danny's dark matter cannons fired from an angle that should have been impossible. The first Zephyrian ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next it was a cloud of atoms scattered across space. The second ship lasted longer, but only because its crew had time to scream before the dark matter torpedo hit. Admiral Zexthon watched in horror as his fleet was destroyed by an enemy he couldn't even see properly. His flagship, the Pride of Zephyr, was the size of a city. It had enough firepower to conquer solar systems. But size meant nothing against weapons that attacked reality itself. The dark matter torpedo that hit his ship created a localized gravitational anomaly. The massive dreadnought folded in on itself like paper. 3,000 years of Zephyrian military tradition died in seconds. Danny watched the destruction with no satisfaction. The Zephyrian fleet had been completely outmatched. It hadn't been a battle. It had been an execution. Back on Earth, President Foster received the battle reports in her private office. Admiral Hayes stood beside her desk as she read the details of humanity's first encounter with major alien military forces. "Casualties on our side?" she asked. "None," Hayes replied. "The Retribution didn't even take damage." And the Zephyrian fleet. Completely destroyed. No survivors. President Foster was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked up at Hayes. "Admiral, I want you to prepare a message for the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity formally requests full membership status. Tell them we're ready to take our place among the galactic powers." "And if they refuse again?" Hayes asked. President Foster looked out her window at the stars above Earth. Somewhere out there, alien species were about to learn that the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. "They won't refuse," she said quietly. "Not anymore. The age of human weakness was over. The age of fear had begun." The news traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. Admiral Zexthon was dead. His entire fleet had been destroyed by a single human ship. Species that had never given humanity a second thought suddenly found themselves asking the same question. How was this possible? On the Altarian homeworld, Chancellor Vextar called an emergency session of the High Council. The Altarians had been one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. They had always considered themselves superior to younger species, especially humans. "The reports must be wrong," declared General Crixvon. "No human ship could destroy a Zephyrian fleet. The humans don't even have proper shields on their vessels." "The reports come from our own intelligence networks," Chancellor Vextar replied. 3 separate sources confirm the same story. The Zephyrian ships were destroyed by weapons we've never seen before, weapons that seem to ignore the laws of physics. Meanwhile, on Centaurus Prime, the Trade Federation was having its own emergency meeting. The Federation controlled most of the galaxy's commerce. They had grown rich by denying humans access to the best trade routes and most profitable markets. Now their carefully controlled system was under threat. If the humans truly have this new technology, said Trade Minister Kelnon, then they no longer need our permission to go anywhere in the galaxy. They can take whatever they want. The Federation's military advisor, Admiral Keltar, agreed. Our defense fleets are no match for weapons that can destroy Zephyrian dreadnoughts. We need to negotiate with the humans before they decide to take our territory by force. Captain Danny Lee was patrolling the Vega system when he received new orders. Command wanted him to make contact with an Altarian battle group that was approaching human space. The Altarians claimed they were on a diplomatic mission. Danny was ordered to escort them to Earth. The Altarian battle group consisted of 20 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Their leader, Admiral Thexvon, had fought in dozens of wars. He had conquered entire star systems, but as his ships approached the meeting point, he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Human vessel, Admiral Thexvon transmitted. I am Admiral Thexvon of the Altarian Republic. I request permission to approach your planet for diplomatic discussions. Danny almost laughed. 6 months ago, the Altarians wouldn't even acknowledge that humans existed. Now they were asking permission to enter human space. Permission granted, Danny replied. Follow my ship and make no aggressive moves. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. Admiral Thexvon wanted to be angry at the humans' tone, but he had seen the reports from the Zephyrian battle. He had watched video recordings of Zephyrian dreadnoughts being crushed like insects. He kept his anger to himself. The journey to Earth took 3 days. During that time, more and more alien fleets arrived in human space. The Centauri Trade Federation sent their largest diplomatic vessel. The Rigelian Mining Consortium offered exclusive contracts they had never offered before. Even the proud Andromedan Coalition, who had always claimed humans were too violent for civilized society, sent ambassadors with gifts. General Ray Phillips, Earth's military liaison, watched the alien ships arrive from his office in Geneva. For over a century, he had attended Galactic Council meetings where humans were treated like children. Alien delegates would speak over human representatives and ignore their requests. Now those same aliens were lining up to beg for human friendship. General, his aide announced, the Zephyrian remnant has requested an audience. Ray almost choked on his coffee. The Zephyrian remnant was what remained of the Zephyrian Empire after humanity had destroyed their main fleet. They were asking to meet with humans. The species that had once threatened to exterminate humanity was now asking for mercy. The first formal meeting took place in New Geneva's diplomatic center. Ray sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by alien ambassadors who had once looked down on him. Now they hung on his every word. Honored General Phillips, began Ambassador Veltar of the Altarian Republic, my government wishes to express our deep regret for any past misunderstandings with humanity. We hope to begin a new era of cooperation and friendship. Ray remembered the last time he had met Veltar. The Altarian had refused to shake his hand, claiming that humans were too primitive for physical contact. Now Veltar was practically begging for human approval. What exactly are you offering? Ray asked. Full trade partnerships, Veltar replied quickly. Access to our technology. Mutual defense agreements. Whatever humanity requires. Similar offers came from every alien delegation. The Centauri offered exclusive mining rights to asteroid fields they had previously claimed for themselves. The Rigelians promised to share advanced manufacturing techniques they had guarded for thousands of years. The Andromedans even offered to support human membership in the Galactic Council. But Ray knew the truth. None of these offers came from respect or friendship. They came from fear. The aliens had finally realized that humanity possessed weapons they couldn't defend against. They were trying to buy safety with treaties and trade deals. Commander Nicole Turner was patrolling the Outer Rim when she received an emergency call from Kepler Station. The station was a human research outpost on the edge of explored space. It was small and lightly defended. Normally, no one would bother attacking such an unimportant target, but these were not normal times. A fleet of Orion Syndicate ships was approaching the station. The Orion Syndicate was a criminal organization that had grown powerful by preying on weaker species. They had decided to test humanity's new weapons for themselves. Nicole's squadron consisted of 3 ships: the USS Vengeance, USS Dominion, and USS Justice. Each ship was equipped with the latest dark matter technology. Nicole was about to give the Orion Syndicate a lesson they would never forget. "Orion vessels," Nicole transmitted. "You are ordered to leave this system immediately. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." The Orion commander laughed. "3 small human ships against our entire fleet? You must be joking. Surrender now and we might let some of your people live." Nicole sighed. The criminals were about to learn why the entire galaxy was suddenly afraid of humanity. "All ships," she ordered, "engage phase drives, target the enemy vessels and fire at will." The 3 human ships vanished from normal space. To the Orion fleet, they simply disappeared. 30 criminal vessels searched desperately for targets they couldn't see while death approached from impossible angles. The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. One by one, the Orion ships were destroyed by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. Dark matter torpedoes created gravitational anomalies that crushed their hulls. Energy cannons that attacked matter itself turned their armor to dust. When the battle was over, 30 Orion ships had been reduced to floating debris. The 3 human vessels rematerialized in normal space, completely undamaged. Nicole felt sick as she looked at the destruction her ships had caused. "Commander," her communications officer called. "We're receiving transmissions from across the sector. Multiple alien fleets are requesting permission to withdraw from human space." Nicole was not surprised. News of the battle would spread quickly. The galaxy would learn that humanity's weapons worked equally well against criminals and military forces. No one was safe from the new human fleet. On Earth, President Foster met with her top advisors to discuss the changing galactic situation. The meeting room was filled with reports from across human space. Every day brought news of alien fleets withdrawing from areas they had previously claimed. "Madam President," Admiral Hayes reported, "we've received formal requests for non-aggression pacts from 47 different species. They're all offering significant concessions in exchange for guarantees that we won't attack them." "And our response?" President Foster asked. "We're accepting all offers that benefit humanity," General Turner replied. "The aliens are giving us everything we've wanted for over a century. Better trade deals, access to restricted space lanes, and recognition of our territorial claims." President Foster looked out her window at the night sky. The stars that had once seemed so far away now felt within reach. Humanity had achieved in months what they had been trying to accomplish for decades. They had gained the respect of the galactic community, but she knew it wasn't really respect. It was fear. The aliens weren't treating humans as equals because they wanted to. They were doing it because they were terrified of humanity's new weapons. "General," she said quietly, "what kind of people have we become?" General Turner was quiet for a moment. Then he answered honestly. "We've become the people the galaxy fears most," he said. "And maybe that's exactly what we needed to become." Outside, the stars continued to shine. But across the galaxy, alien civilizations looked up at those same stars with new fear. Somewhere among them, humanity waited with weapons that could unmake reality itself. The balance of power had shifted forever, and there was no going back. Captain Laura Scott stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance and stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. What she was seeing should have been impossible. 3 entire planets had simply vanished from the Rigelian system. "Run the scan again," she ordered her science officer. "I've run it 12 times, Captain," Lieutenant Kevin Park replied. "The results are the same. Rigel 7, 8, and 9 are gone. There's nothing left but empty space and debris." Laura felt sick. She knew exactly what had happened to those planets. She had caused their destruction with a single dark matter torpedo. What was supposed to be a warning shot had become the greatest disaster in galactic history. The mission had started simple enough. The Rigelian Mining Consortium had been secretly building military installations in violation of their non-aggression pact with humanity. Intelligence reports suggested they were developing weapons specifically designed to counter human dark matter technology. Laura had been ordered to destroy one military base as a warning. She had targeted the smallest installation on Rigel 7. The dark matter torpedo should have created a small, gravitational anomaly that would crush the base while leaving the planet intact. Instead, something had gone terribly wrong. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, who was on board as a technical advisor, studied the readings with growing horror. "Captain, the torpedo didn't behave as expected. Instead of creating a localized gravitational field, it triggered a cascade reaction. The gravitational distortion spread through the entire system." "How many people were on those planets?" Laura asked quietly. The Rigelian system had a population of approximately 2 billion beings, Lieutenant Park answered, including civilians, families, children. Laura sat down heavily in her command chair. In trying to destroy one military base, she had accidentally committed genocide on a scale the galaxy had never seen. 2 billion innocent lives had been snuffed out because of her actions. The news reached Earth within hours. President Foster called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. The room was filled with grim faces as they discussed the implications of what had happened. The entire galaxy is in panic, reported Secretary of State Maria Lopez. 43 species have formally requested that we halt all dark matter weapon testing. 12 others have threatened to form a military alliance against us if we don't agree to arms limitations. And our response? President Foster asked. General Alex Turner spoke first. We tell them that humanity will not be dictated to by alien species who spent centuries keeping us down. If they want to form an alliance against us, let them try. Our weapons are superior to anything they can field. Dr. Carol Davis, the head of Earth's Ethics Committee, disagreed strongly. General, we just accidentally destroyed 3 planets. 2 billion beings are dead because of our weapons. We need to stop and consider what we're doing before we make things worse. Dr. Davis is right, Admiral Hayes added. The dark matter technology is more dangerous than we initially realized. Captain Scott was one of our most experienced officers, and she still couldn't control the weapon properly. President Foster listened to the debate with growing concern. The technology that had elevated humanity to galactic prominence was now threatening to turn them into monsters. But she also knew that giving up their weapons would mean returning to their previous status as second-class citizens. What are our options? She asked. We have 3 choices, Admiral Hayes replied. We can continue developing the technology and risk more accidents. We can stop using the weapons and lose our position of power, or we can try to find a middle ground. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the alien species were indeed forming alliances. On Andromeda Prime, representatives from over 200 civilizations gathered for the largest military conference in galactic history. Admiral Kethvar of the Andromedan Coalition stood before the assembled delegates. Behind him, holographic displays showed the destruction of the Rigelian system. The images were horrifying. Where 3 planets had once orbited their star, there was now only twisted wreckage and empty space. Fellow beings, Admiral Kethvar began, we face a threat unlike any in galactic history. The humans possess weapons that can destroy entire star systems. Today it was the Rigelian worlds. Tomorrow it could be any of our homeworlds. The response was immediate and unanimous. Species that had been enemies for millennia, now united in common cause. The Zephyrian remnant offered their surviving ships to the Alliance. The Centauri Trade Federation pledged their vast resources to fund a joint military effort. Even the isolated Vegan Confederacy, who had not participated in galactic politics for over 1,000 years, sent representatives to offer their support. Captain Troy Bennett of the USS Retribution was patrolling the Vega system when he witnessed the aftermath of humanity's new reputation. An alien refugee fleet was fleeing through the system, running from a human patrol that existed only in their imagination. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving distress calls from the refugee ships. They're asking us not to destroy them. Troy looked at the refugee fleet through his view screen. There were hundreds of ships carrying entire families who had abandoned their homes rather than risk encountering human forces. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong were fleeing in terror from his ship. Sir, what are your orders? His first officer asked. Troy thought about his orders. He was supposed to patrol this system and ensure that no hostile forces threatened human interests. But these refugees weren't hostile. They were just afraid. Send a message to the refugee fleet, he said finally. Tell them that humanity has no intention of harming civilian populations. Offer them safe passage through our territory. The response from the refugee fleet was skeptical at first. They had heard about the destruction of the Rigelian system. They knew what human weapons could do, but eventually, their desperation overcame their fear, and they accepted Troy's offer of safe passage. As Troy watched the refugee ships jump to hyperspace, he began to question everything humanity had become. They had gained the respect they had always wanted, but at what cost? The galaxy now saw humans as merciless killers who could destroy entire worlds on a whim. Back on Earth, Dr. Carol Davis was working on a proposal that might offer a solution to humanity's growing isolation. She called it the Galactic Restoration Project. The idea was to gradually share defensive applications of dark matter technology with peaceful species, while maintaining humanity's military advantage. If we give them the ability to protect themselves from our weapons, she explained to President Foster, they might be less afraid of us. Fear is driving them toward military alliance against us. If we can reduce that fear, we might avoid a galactic war. President Foster was intrigued by the idea, but General Turner was opposed. Madam President, sharing our technology with potential enemies would be suicide. The only reason we're safe right now is because they can't match our weapons. If we give them the means to defend themselves, we lose our advantage. General, our advantage is also our problem, Dr. Davis replied. The entire galaxy is united against us because of our weapons. If we don't find a way to reduce tensions, we're going to face a war against every species in the galaxy. The debate continued for hours. Some officials argued for a more aggressive approach, suggesting that humanity should conquer key systems before the alien alliance became too strong. Others supported Dr. Davis's proposal for gradual technology sharing. Still others suggested that humanity should abandon the dark matter technology entirely and return to conventional weapons. As the meeting went on, reports continued to arrive from across human space. Alien species were withdrawing from border systems at an alarming rate. Trade relationships that had taken decades to build were collapsing overnight. Scientific cooperation projects were being canceled. The entire structure of galactic civilization was breaking down because of fear of human weapons. Captain Ben Rodriguez of the USS Horizon was conducting a routine patrol near the edge of human space when he encountered something that made him reconsider everything he thought he knew about the war. A damaged alien ship was drifting in space, its engines dead and its life support failing. Captain, his communications officer reported, the alien vessel is requesting assistance. They say they have children on board. Ben could have ignored the request. The alien ship was from the Tau Ceti system, whose government had formally condemned humanity after the Rigelian disaster. But looking at the ship's condition, he knew the people inside would die if he didn't help them. All stop, he ordered. Prepare a rescue team. The aliens on the disabled ship were terrified when human shuttles approached. They had expected to be killed or enslaved. Instead, Ben's crew worked for 6 hours to repair their engines and provided them with medical supplies for their injured. As the alien ship prepared to leave, their captain sent a message to Ben. Thank you, the alien said. I had believed all humans were monsters. You have shown me that some of you are still capable of mercy. Ben watched the alien ship jump to hyperspace and wondered how many other beings in the galaxy saw humans as monsters. The dark matter technology had given humanity power, but it had also given them a reputation for cruelty that might be impossible to overcome. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was responsible for that change. The question was whether 5 years had passed since humanity first revealed its dark matter weapons to the galaxy. The universe had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Admiral Grace Phillips stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Dominion, and looked out at the largest fleet in galactic history. 200 human warships stretched across space in perfect formation. Each one was equipped with dark matter technology that could destroy entire star systems. Grace commanded more firepower than any being in the history of the galaxy. It was a responsibility that kept her awake at night. Admiral, her communications officer announced, we're receiving the daily reports from across the Terran hegemony. Grace nodded and accepted the datapad. The Terran hegemony. That was what humanity's territory was called now. It encompassed over 300 star systems and included dozens of alien species as client states. The old Galactic Council had dissolved 3 years ago, unable to function in a universe dominated by human military power. The reports made for interesting reading. The former Zephyrian Empire had been renamed the Zephyrian Protectorate and was now governed by humans. Their children learned human languages in school and their leaders sought approval from Earth before making any major decisions. The proud species that had once threatened to exterminate humanity now functioned as servants to their former enemies. Similar stories came from across human space. The Altarian Republic had become the Altarian Administrative Zone. The Centauri Trade Federation had been dissolved and replaced with human-controlled commercial enterprises. Even the mighty Andromedan Coalition had been forced to accept human oversight of their military forces. Captain Joe Martinez patrolled the former Andromedan capital in his ship, the USS Liberty. The planet below had once been the center of a civilization that spanned thousands of star systems. Now it was just another world in the Terran hegemony, governed by human administrators who reported to Earth. Joe received regular reports from the planetary governor, a human named David Chen who had been appointed to oversee the transition of Andromedan society. The reports were always the same. The Andromedans were complying with human directives. They were teaching their children human history. They were adopting human customs and abandoning their own traditions. "Captain," his first officer reported, "Governor Chen is requesting a meeting. He says there's been some unrest in the capital city." Joe sighed. There was always unrest somewhere in the hegemony, alien species struggling to adapt to human rule, resistance groups planning hopeless attacks against human forces, protesters demanding the return of their independence. But Joe knew the truth. The aliens weren't protesting because they hated human rule. They were protesting because they remembered what their own civilizations had been like before humanity became dominant. They had been free, proud, and independent. Now they were subjects in an empire ruled by the species they had once dismissed as primitive. On Earth, the changes were just as dramatic. President Helen Foster had been replaced by Director Marcus Webb, who governed through the Terran Council, rather than traditional democratic institutions. The old system of elections and debates had been deemed too slow for managing a galactic empire. Director Webb met daily with the heads of various departments to coordinate the administration of human space. Dr. Susan Clark, now head of the Galactic Ethics Committee, was one of his most frequent advisors. "Director," Susan reported, "I've received the quarterly assessment of conditions in the client states. Social stability is improving, but cultural integration is proceeding slower than expected." "What's the problem?" Webb asked. "The alien species are having difficulty abandoning their traditional ways of life," Susan explained. "Many still remember their independence and resent human authority. We're seeing increased rates of depression and social dysfunction among the client populations." Webb considered this information carefully. The human government had learned that ruling a galactic empire was more complicated than conquering one. It wasn't enough to defeat alien military forces. They also had to manage hundreds of different species with their own cultures, traditions, and beliefs. "What do you recommend?" he asked. "We need to implement the Galactic Restoration Project more aggressively," Susan replied. "If we give the client species more autonomy in their internal affairs, they might be more accepting of human oversight in military and foreign policy matters." The Galactic Restoration Project had been Dr. Carol Davis's idea, but it had evolved significantly since her original proposal. Instead of sharing defensive technology with alien species, it now focused on gradually allowing them to govern themselves under human supervision. The goal was to create a stable galactic order that didn't require constant military intervention. Captain Ben Rodriguez commanded the newest ship in the human fleet, the USS Horizon. Unlike the older vessels, his ship was designed for exploration rather than conquest. His mission was to map the regions beyond known space and make contact with species that had not yet encountered humanity. It was dangerous work. Many alien civilizations had heard stories about human dark matter weapons and were prepared to fight rather than submit to human authority. But Ben's orders were clear. He was to offer peaceful contact and trade relationships, not conquest. His latest mission had taken him to the edge of the galaxy, where a species called the Calarians had built a small but advanced civilization. The Calarians had developed impressive defensive technology and were not afraid to use it against perceived threats. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "the Calarian fleet is approaching our position. They're demanding that we leave their territory immediately." Ben looked at the sensor readings. 12 Calarian ships, each one bristling with weapons. Under normal circumstances, his single ship could destroy the entire fleet without taking damage. But his orders were to avoid conflict whenever possible. "Open a channel," he ordered. "This is Captain Ben Rodriguez of the Terran hegemony ship USS Horizon. We come in peace and request permission to establish diplomatic relations with your people." The response was predictably hostile. "Human ship, we know what you have done to other species. We will not submit to your empire. Leave now, or face the consequences." Ben had heard similar responses from dozens of species over the past year. The reputation of human cruelty had spread far beyond the borders of the hegemony. Even species that had never directly encountered humans knew about the destruction of the Rigelian system and the subjugation of the great galactic powers. "Calarian fleet," Ben replied. "Humanity has no desire to conquer your people. We seek only peaceful trade and cultural exchange. We're prepared to guarantee your independence in exchange for a non-aggression pact." The negotiations took 3 days, but eventually the Calarians agreed to meet with human diplomats. It was a small victory, but Ben knew it was important. Every species that chose cooperation over resistance made the galaxy a little more stable. But not every first contact mission ended peacefully. Captain Lisa Park of the USS Justice had encountered a species that refused all diplomatic overtures. The Nexari had declared holy war against humanity after learning about human dark matter technology. They believed that such weapons violated the natural order of the universe, and that humans were an abomination that needed to be destroyed. The Nexari fleet had attacked without warning, using weapons that could penetrate conventional shields. For a moment, Lisa thought she might actually be in a fair fight. Then she activated her dark matter weapons, and the battle was over in seconds. 23 Nexari ships were destroyed. Their homeworld was left defenseless. Lisa could have conquered their entire civilization with a single torpedo, but her orders were specific. She was to disable their military forces and then offer them the same choice given to every species that encountered humanity: submit to human authority and live, or resist and face extinction. The Nexari chose submission. Back on Earth, Director Webb received reports of humanity's continuing expansion. Every month brought news of new species joining the hegemony, either through diplomacy or force. The human empire now included over 400 star systems and was still growing, but Webb knew that expansion came with costs. The human military was stretched thin across thousands of light years. The administrative burden of governing hundreds of alien species was enormous, and the constant fear of rebellion kept human forces in a state of perpetual readiness for war. Director Admiral Hayes reported during their weekly briefing. "Intelligence suggests that several species are secretly coordinating resistance activities. There may be another alliance forming against us." Webb was not surprised. Every empire in galactic history had faced rebellions from conquered peoples. The difference was that humanity possessed weapons that could end such rebellions permanently. "What do you recommend?" Webb asked. "Preemptive strikes against the leadership of suspected resistance movements," Hayes replied. "If we eliminate the organizers before they can coordinate their activities, we can prevent a large-scale uprising." Webb considered the recommendation. It was the logical military response to a potential threat, but he also knew that such actions would further damage humanity's reputation and make future diplomatic solution